It's my honor now to introduce Rabbi Shaanan Gelman from Kilat Chavavei Tzion in Skokie. Rabbi Gelman is also the president of the CRC. And as a rabbi in the community, this entire Shavuos program was his idea. And as president, he called together a group within the CRC to make this happen. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in the community that Rabbi Gelman has his imprint on, and we're honored to have him speak to us tonight.
Thank you, Rabbi Mostovsky. It is an honor to be here. I just want to make sure you hear me.
We can hear you.
Excellent, excellent. I should correct you and point out that the brainchild behind this was Rabbi Matenki, who's on the line here. So I thank him for really coming up with this idea, and we just kind of followed and put it together. Rabbi Mostovsky, kol hakavod. This has been a phenomenal program, a pleasure, an honor, and we have to think of ways as a community that we can continue to, in a display of achdus and bringing together the best and the brightest of our community. There really is a tremendous amount to offer. I've been so deeply impressed with the wide array and the talent of speakers that we've had each night. So kol hakavod, and we should only go higher from here, even after we return back to our shuls. I'm going to share a screen with you. And the topic is the topic of the talk is Ruth and Yitro, a master class in honoring one's in-laws. And there are going to be two components to the conversation. One will be a halachic component, the halachos of honoring one's in-laws, and then a philosophical one where I want to spend most of the time. I think that's the part that most people are more interested in. But I'll begin with a joke and I guess a question. There are two mothers who appear before King Solomon, the wisest of all men, each claiming that a certain young man has pledged his trust to her daughter. So they're fighting. Who's the real son-in-law? King Solomon decides, cut the man in half, and they can share him. Oh no, says one woman. She starts to plead. She says, please, let him live, the humanity. How horrible, what a thought, cutting a person in half. No problem, says the other woman. Cut him in half. Aha, exclaims the king. The second one is the true mother-in-law. And this well-known joke, of course, the play on the story of Solomon the Wise and the baby, is not so much of a joke to many of us because we know that the relationship between mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws and father-in-laws and son-in-laws, which are the two relationships we're going to focus upon, is naturally a strained one. It's an awkward relationship. It's a difficult relationship. And I'm going to go to the second half of the Makaros just to introduce this topic very briefly, and then we'll go back to the halachic component. And that is the reason why it is necessarily a strained relationship, the reason why there is an awkward and kind of a tug-of-rope relationship between a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law and vice versa, son-in-law. It is the way of the world. Radak says this is the din, this is the principle, it's a halachic ruling that man will leave his father and mother and he will embrace the woman of his dreams. He'll get married. And so there is this woman who cared for him his whole life when he was in Yitro, when he was a small baby, and fed him his baby food and watched him from getting in trouble and helped him out through his school. And all of a sudden one day, another woman catches his attention, and all of a sudden this young man is swept off of his feet. He says goodbye to the woman who had reared him until this point and embraces another. And this creates a strain. Creates a strain because there is a natural conflict, there's a natural dispute. This is my boy, this is my man, I created him, I brought him up. Who are you? And she says, I know better. Of course, we know this is a meme. I'll share this with you. I don't know if it will share on your screen. I'll share with you briefly. Dear mother-in-law, I don't need you to teach me how to handle my children. I'm living with one of yours, and he needs lots of improvement. So while this is very funny, this is because there's a natural conflict. Really, who's responsible for this young man? And the conflict develops. The Gemara has a a frightening yet humorous anecdote. Hay chamasa, source 17, da hava sni'a la l'kalasa. Amrullah zil ikshit mishka da farsama. A certain mother-in-law, those who do daf yomi saw this recently. There's a certain mother-in-law who hated her daughter-in-law. She said, "Go and adorn yourself with balsam oil." So she went. She adorned herself with balsam oil. Azla ikshit. Ki asas amrullah zil asa ifli shraga. Go and light a lamp. Balsam oil, the Gemara had just told us, was very flammable. Azla itla shraga. She went and lit a lamp. Inpach ba nura ba'achalsa. And a spark flew out and consumed her. The mother-in-law therefore sent the daughter-in-law to be burnt alive. A frightening thought. And yet the Gemara, even when it shares humorous or dark stories, it's sharing an element of truth. Not that, God forbid, this would really happen, but that sometimes in the recesses of one's heart, we kind of wish it would. Because there's this conflict, there's this strain. And I want to talk about the mandate. The mandate of halacha is very clear. Moshe goes to call his father-in-law, one of the two relationships we'll be talking about. And he calls out to his father-in-law, Yitro, and it says, "Vayishalu ish l'reyehu." And what's not clear in the pasuk, and the Mechilta deals with this, and the Mefarshim deal with this, is who was bowing down to whom? Was Moshe bowing down to Yitro? Was Yitro bowing down to Moshe Rabbeinu? Not clear. The Mechilta assumes it was Moshe who approaches Yitro. He greets him, gives him a kiss, and one of the reasons Rashi explains is because it says ish, and ish is an expression that is used to describe Moshe Rabbeinu. So it must have been that Moshe approached Yitro, and he humbled himself, though he was greater in wisdom and spiritual darga, he humbled himself before his father-in-law. We learn from here, the halacha, that a person is obligated to show kavod to the father-in-law. Says the Aruch HaShulchan, David Karol Shaul Avi. After all, David calls Shaul HaMelech Avi in the context of that pasuk, which is interesting. Avi re'eh gam re'eh. David is explaining to Shaul that he could have killed him. He's holding the cloth in his hand, and he clipped a piece of his garment when he was in the cave, and David snuck up behind him, clipped a piece of his garment, and he said, "Look, I could have killed you if I wanted to, but I didn't." And he calls him in that context. He calls him my father. We see that even the most strained relationship, a son-in-law calls the father-in-law father. And not only that, the Aruch HaShulchan derives from Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe shows kavod to his father-in-law. So we have two models of showing kavod to your father-in-law. The Bach is not as forthcoming. The Bach says it's not actual chiyuv. He says Moshe Rabbeinu yirah she'eino chayav ki im lechavdo kederech shemachaved hazekenim. It's not actually an obligation, but it's an obligation on par with the type of chiyuv of honoring your elders. You stand before your elders, you hold the door for them, you show them respect, you let them go first. All those things that you do for those who are older than you, you must do minimally for your father. And Torah Tamima debates whether the source from Shaul or David is a valid source. He says this is a makor kalush me'od. It's a very weak source. Source 4 here. He says that lashon of Avi is not mashma anything. I don't really know, but rather we have the source of Moshe and Moshe kissing his father-in-law. Maybe there we learn the halacha of showing kavod to your father-in-law. And why is that not just a halacha like the Bach says of kavod zakenim, of honoring your elders? Because there's no chiyuv, says the Torah Tamima, to kiss elders. You can't just go, especially now, but you don't go around kissing older people out of respect, even if there's no epidemic. You don't go around kissing older people. But your father-in-law is neshika, so it must have been that Moshe Rabbeinu does that out of a din of kavod for his father-in-law. There's a halacha, you have to mechabed your father-in-law. Mechavadas, the Rabbi Yosef Zal says, he doesn't say it's a chiyuv like mechilta. It's not an obligation, but you have to be ready, you have to be prepared to show kavod to your father-in-law. Minimally, at least prepared to show kavod, but it's not quite an obligation. The Gemara in Kiddushin debates how far this goes, and we'll skip this for now, and I want to go on to the Piskei Tshuva. The Piskei Tshuva points out that it might not be, based on that Gemara in Kiddushin, that it might be different for a daughter-in-law, for a daughter to show kavod for a father-in-law versus the man for his father-in-law, and that sometimes a woman who is married might even be exempt from honoring her own parents because the honor for her husband might come in the way. That means that sometimes when you're honoring your husband, you're dafka not honoring your parents because of that inherent conflict. We'll share a few more interesting halachic nuggets, then we'll go into the philosophical element. The Shulchan Aruch teaches that if your father says to you, Ashkeni Mayim, the Imo Meres Ashkeni Mayim, you have to mechabed your father first, because the mother is obligated in honor to the father and therefore to the husband, and therefore if each of them asks you for water, you give the father first, except in my house. If the father asks you for water and the mother asks you have to give the mother first. That's the rule. The pasuk, the Aselach Harav, or Vincent Zilberstein, has a tshuva where he discusses whether you can use your father-in-law's or mother-in-law's first name. And he says that he knows Ashkenazic families that where the husband and wife don't even call each other by their first name. Kal v'chomer, all the more so to refer to your father-in-law or mother-in-law by their first name, that would be an ultimate chutzpah. Part of this goes to being a mensch. So it's logical. You don't do such a thing. I know there are a lot of families where they do it. I don't understand. Even if it's friendly, even if it's chummy, I don't understand how you can use your father-in-law, your mother-in-law's name. The MS Yaakov, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, points out that when we learn out from Moshe Ish, that Ish approaches Yisro, how does Rashi know that he was an Ish? That Ish refers to Moshe, not just because Moshe Rabbeinu is called an Ish, but because Ish fundamentally is a mensch. And at his core, Moshe was a tzaddik, Moshe was a tamim, right? Like we find by Noach. But Moshe was an Ish. He was a human being, and a mensch doesn't act like that. The Gemara in Sota tells us, though, that in the Yemos HaMashiach, in the times when the Mashiach is around the corner, chutzpah yizgeh, there'll be tremendous chutzpah in the world. And one of the terrible things that will happen, in addition to losing yarei chet, people who are no longer God-fearing will disappear. People will na'arim pnei zekenim yalbinu. People will embarrass elders. Zekenim yamdu neketanim. Elders will have to stand up before small children and have to mechabed them because maybe they're more kavadik, maybe they have more money. Ben menavel av, a son will disgrace his father. Bas kama be'ima, a daughter against her mother, and then kala b'chamosa. The final sign, the Gemara says, of the ikvas of the Mashiach, of chutzpah, of brazenness, is a daughter-in-law attacking her mother-in-law. The Gemara in Ksuos points out that it's not just a sign of chutzpah, but it's a violation of what's called das Yehudis, the fundamental Jewish behavior, such that the Gemara tells us that if you violate das Yehudis, if you act in a certain way that is not characteristic of a Jewish woman, you forfeit your rights over ksuva. Abba Shol adds onto that list of various violations in modesty. If you curse a person's parents in front of your spouse, that is the type of violation of das Yehudis that might even forfeit a person's ketubah. Menashe Klein has an interesting tshuva on this. The Shilas Yaivitz, or Yaakov Emden, talks about how perhaps the hatred for one's father-in-law or mother-in-law is more palpable when you're living on top of one of them. You're living in the same house. This is why you have to practice social distancing, not just during this era, but all over. You have to practice social distancing because the further away you are, the more opportunity you have to show proper kavod. Don't be too far, otherwise you're taking the kids away. The Vilna Gaon, in a letter that he composed to his mother when he went to Eretz Yisrael, gives various instructions and his well wishes to his family. And then he says on the underlined line, source 14, I ask my wife to please honor my mother. Kimosha Kasuf B'Torah. And the Vilna Gaon writes, what is that chiyuv? The chiyuv to honor my mother, as it says in the Torah. A phenomenal line. It says in the Torah, so he felt it was a chiyuv deoraisa, not like Rav Yosef. With that halachic framework behind us, I want to talk about why it's so difficult. We already said that it's unnatural, right? You get married, you embrace a different person, two women are fighting over whose man this really is, and the man wants nothing to do with it. It used to be once upon a time when a woman was in labor, so you would sit in the waiting room and you'd wait, and then when it was back then, before we knew how dangerous it was, you'd wait and you'd find out the good news. You either get a cigar with a blue ribbon around it or a cigar with a pink ribbon around it. They tell you it's a girl, it's a boy, mazel tov. You're happy, you have a baby, you didn't have to deal with it. And the mother were in there fighting and they're helping the mother push. Now you have to be in there, you have to do lamaz, and you have to do all it, and you don't even get the cigar anymore. But once upon a time, there was a different type of relationship. And now mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws fighting over the children, it's pretty normal. So I want to share with you two case studies. The case studies come down to the stories that we learn about on Shavuos. One story of Shavuos is the story of Matan Torah, and that is the story that is brought about in Parshas Yitro, the ultimate father-in-law. Yitro, the father-in-law of Moshe. And the other story we read about is a story of a simple story of human beings acting in a kindly and concerned way, and that is the book of Ruth. Book of Ruth, we have the story of Naomi and Ruth, story of a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. And these stories act as a foil for how we should conduct ourselves, because if you look at the story, you'll see something very interesting. In Moshe Rabbeinu's case, he gets along beautifully with his father-in-law, and in Ruth's case, she gets along beautifully with her mother-in-law. But it's not so simple, because if we were in those situations, we might not have done so well. Let's build the case first for the father-in-law and what could have gone awry, and then we'll build the case for the mother-in-law, and then we'll talk about what went right. The story of Yitro and Moshe is a simple one we all know. By Yishma Yitro Kohen Midyan Chos and Moshe is Kol Asher Asa Pin Moshe of Yisrael Amo Ki Yotzi Hashem Es Yisrael Mitzrayim. Yisro hears about the Jewish people leaving Eretz Mitzrayim. He learns about Matan Torah according to some, to Machlokes and Mukta Buchar B'Torah. And Yisro learns about the Jewish people and their greatness. And at that moment, where we learn about the family, Moshe's father-in-law Yisro took Zipporah after he had sent her away, the two sons. And after this takes place, Yisro approaches Moshe and he offers some advice. He says, it's not good what's going on for you. You are handling all the shilohs. You're up 24/7. All of the children of Israel are coming to you. Moshe, you need helpers. You need to learn how to delegate. You need to learn how to create an appellate court system. Vayikach Yisro Chos Moshe Olu Zvachim. Sorry, over here, go further. Vayari Chos Moshe Pasuk Yudalit. Yisro saw it kol asher hu oseh la'am. Vayomer ma hadavar hazeh asher ata oseh la'am. Madua ata yoshev levadecha v'chol ha'am nitzav alecha min haboker ad ha'aretz. Yisro pulls him aside and he says, listen, son, let me give you some unsolicited advice. If we had $1 for every time a father-in-law offers us unsolicited advice, it's a recipe for disaster. Not only does Moshe listen, but they get along famously. How do I know they get along famously? Well, later on in the story, if we go on later on in the story, we'll see that Moshe invites Yisro to join the Jewish people. And according to the Ramban's interpretation, we're going to Eretz Yisrael. Come with us. And according to Ramban, Yisro joins with the Bnei Yisrael. Sforno disagrees. So we have a story of a recipe for disaster, a father-in-law advising a son-in-law. But I'm going to add to it even more, because the father-in-law comes from a foreign deity. He comes from a foreign philosophy. He's not like Moshe at all. Yet Moshe embraces his wisdom. Moshe runs to greet him according to Mechilta, and Moshe listens to the father's advice. Now we have another story, which is a recipe for disaster. The story of Ruth, the story of the holiday of Shavuos. And this is the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law. And it was the days of Shavuot HaShoftim. They go to live in a faraway land. They go to live in Sdei Moab, and she callously names her children Machlon and Chilyon, disease, destruction, and they run away from the Jewish community. And the two boys, Machlon and Chilyon, disease and destruction, marry outside of the faith, Ruth and Naomi. So you have already a strained mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship, because these Jewish boys went and they married out of the faith. You imagine there's a lot of tension there, but then the boys die. So this is her ticket out of this purgatory, out of Sdei Moab. Sorry, you're no longer my daughter-in-laws. My boys passed away. Who are you? Ruth, Naomi, goodbye. And in fact, Ruth and Orpah, goodbye. In fact, Orpah does give her mother-in-law a kiss goodbye, but Ruth gives an embrace. Ruth dov kama. Ruth clings to her mother. A hug is warmer than a kiss. How do I know? Because if you watch mothers and daughters, they hug and they don't mind ruining their makeup. But when a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law kiss, they give the cheek, they go mwah, they make the noise mwah, and they bump their cheeks against one another, and so as not to mess up their makeup, because their makeup is more important than the relationship. So who gives the warm hug and embrace? That's Ruth. Who has the distant relationship? That is Orpah. How does it work out? How do you learn to love a daughter-in-law who's from a foreign relationship, who's from a foreign mentality, who is no longer your daughter-in-law? She was married to your son. The son is dead. Goodbye. Say goodbye. You don't have to deal with that tension anymore. Al Ken Yazov. Abandon the relationship. And yet, they embrace one another. Ruth first embraces Naomi. And then Naomi in source 20, Tov Biti. It's good, my daughter. She calls her my daughter. Amos Chacham, in his commentary to Sefer Rus, notes that the word BT is a new line which doesn't appear at the beginning of the story. She starts to call her ex-daughter-in-law, who happens not to be Jewish, my daughter. And then she gives her dating advice. Think about how strange it could be. Not only is this my daughter-in-law from another nation, not only is she no longer related to me because the son is dead, but why would I want to advise her to date other people? The ultimate tension, and yet she is advising her. She's advising her how to get along, how to put on makeup, right? How to put yourself together. They form a relationship, a covenantal relationship. And by the end of the story, the most bizarre thing happens, right? And the husband is no longer in the he's no longer in the birthing room. He's in the waiting room, waiting for the cigar. And who's there helping the mother give birth? Naomi is there, right by Ruth's side. She picks up the baby, and the neighbors call out, "Vatikrana lo ashkenot shem lemor yulad ben la Naomi." There is a son to Naomi. It's not Naomi's son. This son is not even a son, it's not even a grandson of Naomi. It's the son of her son's old wife. But this is not her son. And yet the neighbors herald it as Yulad ben la Naomi, as if she has become a covenantal parent. She fails remarkably in the beginning of the story as a biological parent, callously naming their children, moving them to a neighborhood that's barren of Yiddishkeit, and letting them marry out of the faith, taking a hands-off approach to parenthood. In the end of the story, she is involved and engaged. She is as Rav Soloveitchik calls, a covenantal parent. So how do we understand this? How do we have all the markers of tension, all the things that could possibly go wrong, and they do normally, by a father-in-law, by a son-in-law, a father-in-law who gives unsolicited advice to a son-in-law from a different world, or a mother-in-law who says, "Let me help you with that child. Let me tell you how to parent that baby." And miraculously, they get along well. Famously. What's the recipe? I'll add one more interesting ingredient, and you can think about this, is the Psikta Rabbi tells us there were three great converts. Rachav, who is, of course, Yeshua's wife, Yisro, and Rus. Among the three greatest converts of all time are Yitro and Rus, two of the sort of the centerpieces of the holiday of Shavuot. Shavuot is the holiday of conversion. And the letters in Yisro and Ruth are similar. You notice outside of that Yud, basically Rus and Yisro have the exact same osios. They have the same letters. There's a play on words, Yisro and Rus. Not only that, one is the Jewish mother-in-law of a non-Jewish daughter-in-law who converts, and one is the Jewish son-in-law of a non-Jewish father-in-law who converts to Judaism, right? And in fact, in one case, the mother-in-law urges her non-Jewish daughter-in-law to stay back, and Rus insists on staying. In the other case, the son-in-law urges his non-Jewish father-in-law to come join us in Eretz Yisrael. And the father-in-law, according to Ramban, comes to join the Jewish people. So we have this foil, we have these two relationships, and the Torah is trying to teach us something fundamental about father-in-law, daughter-in-law dynamic. And so I want to ask you, at the time we have remaining, we have 6 minutes left. What's the magic formula? How do we solve the mystery of this problem, this age-old problem, which is ingrained in our nature? Al Kain Yazovish, a person by nature, by derech teva, leaves his parents and embraces a new spouse. It creates a rift, a conflict. How do we avoid that? How do we avoid the famous case of the balsam oil that the Gemara in Shabbos describes? I think if we understand a little bit of what attracted Yisro and Rus to the Judaism, we'll also understand what attracted them as converts. We'll also understand what makes them model father-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, and mother-in-laws, and son-in-laws. I think the answer is that Yisro was attracted to Judaism because he hears about everything that happens to Jewish people. He hears about Matan Torah. He hears about covenantal events. He hears about the big, sweeping, historic movements. Kriyat Yamsuf, Melchamas Amalek, says Rashi. He hears about things that change and shape history. And he relates to Moshe, and he says, I can deal with that. I kind of like this. And he's attracted to the covenant. By the way, he's not attracted as much to the people of Am Yisrael. In fact, he finds people annoying, and that's why he says to Moshe, why do you want to deal with these people? They're kind of irritating. You have to delegate. But he's attracted to the covenant, to the Torah. He's attracted to the rules. He's attracted to the system. He's attracted to the notion of Judaism and to God. And he forms a relationship with his son-in-law based on shared values. What is Ruth attracted to? It's very clear. Ruth turns to her and she says, Amech ami v'elokayich Elokai. What does she put first? The nation or God? First, she puts the nation. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. Whereas Yitro is attracted to the God of the Jewish people, Ruth is attracted to the people of the Jewish people. Yitro might find them irritating and difficult to deal with. You have to delegate to deal with the people of Israel. But when it comes to the God of Israel, Ruth is attracted to the God of the Jewish people, but first and foremost, she's attracted to the Jewish people themselves. And if you want to know the magic formula of a daughter-in-law, and a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law to work out things, to work out the relationship, and generally speaking, not everyone's the same, but it's to say we share people. We share our family. Your children are my children, or my grandchildren. Yulad ben la Naomi. It was her son. We share family. We share loved ones. We have the same pictures in our photo albums. And so I may not be able to stand you or your system or your family, but we care about the same people. And that sustains relationships even when they are naturally and unnaturally strained. Having a shared people. What allows the father-in-law and son-in-law to get along? Projects, covenants, ideals. We have a project to work on. We hate each other's guts, but we're going to go under the car and work on the engine. We're going to go work on this project that we have together. We're going to plan a business. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about politics. Sometimes that's a lightning rod from a chlukas. But it is the covenantal and the greater systems that connect to men, and it is the family, the amech ami, that connect women. Now, by the way, we all have parts of us that are attracted to the other elements. This is generalization. But the Torah and the story of Ruth and Yisro, the two greatest converts, the people who by choice elected to be part of the Jewish people, are for this reason also the paradigmatic examples of those who choose to be close to family that they don't have to choose. An in-law is a relationship that you don't have to have, but you choose to have because of circumstances. And you choose how close you want to be. And whether you unite over a shared people or a shared values, those are the magic formulas. The magic formula that attracts people to Yiddishkeit. The holiday of Shavuot, the holiday of conversion, the holiday of Kabbalah Satorah, is also the holiday in which son-in-laws and father-in-laws and daughter-in-laws and mother-in-laws learn to act Amech ami v'elokayich Elokai. And I hope that when we finish this era of social distancing, and we now look at our relationships, some of us are blessed. We haven't had to deal with those uncomfortable relationships for a long time. For many of us, that's very easy. It's very convenient. But this will end, and we will have a reunion. And I hope that reunion will take place with an added sense of mission, of responsibility, that you all care about the same people, and that fundamentally you have to share the same values. And if you could do that, maybe we could renew those strained relationships. When we get out of here, make it our goal to start over, to push the reset button on those relationships that maybe hit a bump in the road, hit a snag. And if we could do that, maybe we'll be zocha to what it means to be an ish, a mensch. And if you're a mensch, maybe you can maybe you'd be fit to accept God's holy Torah. I wish everyone a Chag Sameach, to be safe and healthy, and what an honor this has been. Rabbi Mostovsky.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Gelman. Thank you for the share, for the Divrei Chizuk, the Divrei Torah.